A much less lengthy coaching search for the next running backs coach for Penn State football than the previous one for defensive coordinator. We are here with you on Friday, unless you're watching it on Saturday. And then we're here with you on Saturday. I'm Thomas Frank Carr, and we've got our brain trust of Nate Bauer and Sean Fitz, who have been tag teaming this search over the last couple of days to bring you the latest on who it is. We now have a reported hiring, and Nate, you can handle the vernacular, the nomenclature of all of this. The wording is always like, is it a done deal? Is it not a done deal? But just tell us who's the next running back coach for Penn State.
Yeah, it's Stan Drayton, and according to Pete Thamel and Pete Nakos, it is done. So, something that I put up on our message board on Thursday evening around 9:00, that this was, done, but not done, right? It's all, there's a semantics game that we love to play, where these things, and James Franklin just talked about it, obviously, on Tuesday when he met with the media, right? That his version of done, it only arrives when the pen has hit the paper.
When there's legal consequences to changing your mind.
Yeah, the lawyers have seen it. Everything is set in stone. So, but in any case, yes, as of Friday morning, this is done with Stan Drayton, and Penn State has quickly and efficiently, right. This is a 5-day search. Replaced Ja'Juan Seider, former running backs coach at Penn State.
Fitz, we'll get into the coaching history in just a little bit, but off the top, what do you think of the hire? Good, bad, middle of the road? How do you feel that they have done replacing Ja'Juan Seider?
Yeah, you go back a couple of years prior to his time as the head coach at Temple, and Stan Drayton was as hot as they come in terms of running backs coaches in the country. Was at Texas for a while. He's got 2 national titles, one with Ohio State, one with Florida. So he's been all over the map, but also had success pretty much everywhere he's been. So it's been quite a run for Mr. Drayton here. As Nate mentioned, or is going to talk about, Temple is its own entity, but I look at the search and really think that it was the obvious choice from the outset, right? Like this was as low drama and as low guessing game search as there's really been, just because, hey, Stan was not employed. Penn State needed a coach. James Franklin has known him from the past. Like, a lot of these things added up. So, I think that, people look for the twists and the turns and the drama of the coaching searches. And as far as James Franklin assistant searches go, this one really didn't have too many of them. We learned earlier this week that Drayton had interviewed and that he was the primary candidate. He was going to be the guy that, led. I know DeMarco Murray was thrown out there, but Drayton seemed like the obvious choice from the outset, and ended up being the obvious choice eventually on Friday.
Yeah, so Nate, let's get into that conversation about a fired coach versus going out and getting a guy who has a name like DeMarco Murray and somebody who maybe has, I don't want to say sizzle, because even Ja'Juan Seider, who was one of the best running back coaches in America, who was a institution here, the position and the coach itself is not like an offensive coordinator or maybe even a wide receivers coach, which gets everyone's eyes the size of quarters when you talk about that from the Penn State perspective. So I guess the value proposition of Stan Drayton, the quality of the coach, and the ending at Temple, how does all of that match to you based on what Fitz just said?
Yeah, I think, and again, you can use some of what, right? Franklin talks about things without saying what he's talking about, but you can tell after the fact what he was talking about. And, one of the things that he said earlier this week was having that balance of timing, right? Timing of guys' careers, and guys who are on the upswing and are hot, and guys who are, kind of on the downturn, right? Or later in their career, not necessarily on a downturn, but just are later in their career. And obviously Stan Drayton is in his 50s, and some of the other candidates that Penn State looked at are not, right? They're 20, 30-year-old guys, right? Who are younger in the profession and may be on an explosive trajectory, but are not as accomplished, as solidified, I guess, in their pedigree. And how you balance that out as you look for somebody to hire. So obviously Stan Drayton is a guy who, in terms of things that James Franklin values, He's got all of those things, right? Has won multiple national championships at the college level, has experience as a position coach in the NFL, was an All-American player himself, obviously at the, I believe it's Division II level for Allegheny College, but like this guy's a 3-time All-America at that level. So he, like, as a player, he did it. As a coach, he did it. As an assistant in the college ranks, he did it, and has that experience winning a national championship, which I think is something that, particular to the moment, James Franklin finds extremely appealing, has done it at the NFL level, and has that head coaching experience at Temple, which, you know, as everybody knows, I think he won 9 games. He went 9-25, something like that at Temple. That's not great, but you have that. But you have that experience. You have that in your pocket of, hey, here are things that went well. Here are things that didn't go well. What have you learned from that experience? And, you know, for guys who do it the right way, the value of taking, like, you have seen the results of guys who are coming off of head coach stints and then parlay it into impactful presences with Penn State, right? Tom Allen, Manny Diaz, right? The list is there of guys who have had that success. And I think that Penn State believes Stan Drayton is a guy who can continue that.
So, Fitz, I'm just trying to compile a list of running backs that Stan Drayton has coached. Right off the bat, Bijan Robinson sticks out here as I'm going through the Texas numbers, but also Roschon Johnson is, I think, an NFL running back at this point. Jonathan Brooks was drafted, so that's just from Texas alone. What do you, from the recruiting aspect and from the coaching aspect, let's start with the recruiting aspect. Where do you think he fits into Penn State's pantheon of recruiters? Is this a strong hire? Oh, well, there he goes. Nate, when it comes to the, let's pivot, and I'll ask you this question. You know, the production at some of these institutions feels really good.
Yeah, the two names that have the most, you know, eye-catching appeal to me are Zeke Elliott and Carlos Hyde, right? Just because I've seen them, right? Penn State has played against these guys. You have seen the results that Penn State has had to endure from some of the better running backs that Ohio State has had over the years. So, you know, when it happens once or twice, right? Like, oh, okay, that some of that stuff you can't control, and you aren't solely responsible for it. But when it happens multiple times over a guy's career at every stop that he's been at, that speaks volumes, I think, about the quality of candidate.
Fitz, I mean, Florida, Tennessee, Syracuse, Florida again, Ohio State, Texas. These are major running back jobs over the last 2 decades. And some of the players that he's recruited, you know, I mentioned Bijan Robinson right before you left. And then, of course, Carlos Hyde and Zeke Elliott. Other guys that have gone on to NFL success, been wildly successful at the college level. What's the profile here as the recruiter? And then what is the profile as the developer that
It's interesting because the recruiter is going to change as you age. And obviously he's been in the coaching world for a long, long time. And recruiting has really changed in that area, in the sense of not only does the money become more of a factor now, but also like the travel. You look at Penn State's coordinators, none of them are on the road. All are experienced coaches, none of them are on the road. And I would not be shocked if Stan Drayton was, you know, looking in that direction as well. I mean, it's a really, really harder thing to do as an older coach who has sort of earned that seniority of deciding whether or not it happens. Obviously, it's kind of a 180 there from Ja'Juan Seider, who was an active recruiter and sort of the face of Penn State recruiting for several years there. Not saying that Drayton will definitely not be on the road, but like, you know, I think that once he gets the people in front of him on campus, he'll be more than fine. Like, he has done it. He has recruited these guys. He has developed these guys. You know, I would think that Penn State's current crop of backs has a pretty good idea of what he brings to the table just from the list of names that you could rattle off about him coaching. So I think that that's probably going to be a situation that, I'm not going to say it recruits itself, but like, this is he comes with a certain amount of cachet. And then when you add Penn State's running back tradition to it, recent and all time, it does make a difference. So I think he'll be perfectly fine with that. I'm curious to see if they put him in a region, or if it's going to be one of those ones where he's almost like a coordinator, because you're bringing in a guy that just previously was a head coach at the Division I level. And, there's a bit of gravitas to that. There's a bit of different, you probably approach it a little bit differently than some of the other guys on the staff. And I'm not sure how that would go over, but at the same time, I think Drayton's probably earned it. So be curious to see which direction they go, because I'm not sure that he is the recruiter that he was 15 years ago. He's not as juiced up and ready to go on the road. I think that's everybody in college football, though. So I don't think there's much difference there. But not really concerned about Penn State's running back recruiting with Stan Drayton in charge. I think he'll find the guys. He'll continue to do that and bring in more Fitz for this running back lineage that's been pretty darn good.
Yeah, there is a certain amount of the machine is already running, and so there's a lot of advantages there. From a development perspective, I'm just looking up how the Chicago Bears running backs did in 2015. It's never 1-to-1, right, in terms of a guy's ability versus the the coach that's coaching him. But again, having a chance to coach Matt Forte in the NFL feels like a guy that brings a lot of cachet from that development perspective. Is there a reputation of development there that you're hoping to get out of a guy who's coached at the NFL level, coached at the college level, been a great running back himself? And I'm not at the problem is that fans want to know, are Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton going to get better? Are they going to be the elite version of themselves this year? And is Drayton part of that missing piece?
I think so. Like, I think you get an opportunity to get some fresh eyes for everybody. Like, I mean, it's one thing, not everybody spends as much time in college as top running backs as those two have. I mean, typically those guys would have left after this year or this past year. And now all of a sudden you get a certain reset on top of what you already know. Like, we had a pretty good idea of what Nick Singleton and Kaytron Allen would look like next year, right? Just based on what we've seen the last couple of years. Now you throw a couple more tricks in the bag there, and you've got an opportunity to sort of diversify their skill set, get them more ready for the NFL. This is a guy that spent time in the NFL in terms of developing running backs. So I think it's just a win-win for both of those guys, because you get an opportunity to sort of build on your skill set, understand what the offense is a year into Andy Kotelnicki, and then understand what you did over the last month of the playoff. And those guys were awesome. And I think that they can still take another step in terms of development. You look at where they're at. I think PFF had them as top 10 running backs returning. But in terms of draft status, probably not as high as you would have thought. I would say that. So there's certainly development left in those guys. So I'm excited to see what the transition process is going to be. I'm excited to see how he works with Andy Kotelnicki to sort of take what they learned over the last month of the season and implement it into what you can do over 15, 16, maybe 17 games next year.
And of course, we'll be talking more about it at bluewhiteillustrated.com. A chance for you to join us right now. Pretty sweet deal. You get $1 a week for a full year. That's the new deal from Blue White Illustrated. So, we were doing our $1 deal. You can try us out, and then you can decide if you want to join us for a full year. Now you just join us for $1, and then that repeatedly charges your card for a year. So $52. That's not a bad deal whatsoever for you to join us for the first year over at bluewhiteillustrated.com. And of course, where Messiah Mickens fits into all of this, he was just saying the other day, going to weigh all his options, going to wait and see how this coaching search plays out. Well, now that we have some public knowledge about that, I'm sure we're going to get some more updates on that as we go. Not asking you about that now, Fitz, though, because we got to get going. Nate, final thoughts here to get us out. Anything we didn't discuss that you think is important as we get out the door?
No drama, straightforward, incredibly well-liked guy during his time at Temple. Kids loved him, players loved him. I think as these things go, when you have to adjust on the fly, James Franklin has demonstrated now twice that they are heavily prepared for these things, and was in this case and executed nicely. So,
well, it is Friday morning when we're recording this, so happy Valentine's Day to Penn State fans. Penn State football got you what you wanted, which was a juicy piece of news to get you into the weekend. And, it's a heart-shaped candy that says, "Be mine," with Stan Drayton on the other side. Before I say anything else really stupid, we're going to get going. Of course, bluewhiteillustrated.com. We'll be back on Tuesday with more conversation, unless something else happens, more breaking news, which at this point in February, it feels like they're just slowly dripping out all this news for us. But anyway, the next time we plan to be back is Tuesday with this crew right here on the live show. So we'll talk to you then.